Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Table Talk. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about Downforce. Ages 8 and up, 2 to 6 players, roughly 30 to 45 minutes. First, to set up the game, place the board in the center of the table. It is double-sided, so you should play with the racetrack of your choice. Next, you're going to shuffle up the 8 speed cards of the various colors. You're going to shuffle up the 6 power cards. You're going to put the driver cards nearby. Next, you're going to shuffle up the rest of the speed cards and deal them out evenly to all the players. In a 4 or 5 player game, you should have 2 cards remaining that will be put back in the box. Once the cards have been dealt, you will randomly assign the cards to the starting area for the racetrack. You will give each player a score sheet and something to write with, and we will begin playing the game. There are 3 parts to the game. There's the auction at the beginning, and then there's racing and betting during the game. Let's start with the auction. The way auction works is that first you'll flip over a power card and a speed 8 card to indicate what people are auctioning on. Next, everybody will take a card out of their hand and place a bet. That bet will be based on the number of the corresponding color. So in this case, if I wanted the orange, I may want to bet this card, which has a 6 orange on it. Anyway, we'll all place a bet face down and all reveal at the same time. And the player with the highest number of the corresponding color will win the auction. If there's a tie, then the player who has the most variety on their card. So this player has 4 cards on their card, where mine has 3. So that player will win the orange card, and the driver and the power. They will receive all 3 of these items, put the 8 in their hand. Everyone will receive the card they used to bet, put that back in their hand, and the player who won would place the number in which they spent on the card. So for orange, they would put a 6 here to indicate that they paid $6 million for that car. The auction will continue in this manner, revealing one at a time, and each player will be betting on the card revealed. If you don't want to bet on that card, you can also reveal a card that doesn't necessarily have that color on it. So say if I don't want yellow, I can just reveal a card that doesn't have yellow on it. However, if you want it and you have that color in your hand, you must play that color. If you don't have any of that color in your hand, just because bad deal, then you can use the white as your bet, but only if you don't have that color in your hand. So players will continue to auction off these driver cards and powers, essentially, until all the cars have been auctioned off to a player. Each player should have at least 1 car. If at any point the number of cars remaining and players who don't have cards are equal, so for example, if this player also got the yellow and let's say the next 2 cars, and there are only 2 cars remaining and 2 players without them, then this player would no longer have an option to bet on the cars to make sure that everyone has one. So let's say this player gets this card, and with the last one, since I don't have one, I'll actually be able to just look in my hand and grab the lowest number of that color, and that's what I will be paying for, since I don't really have a choice on what I get. It is possible that if no one wants it and plays nothing to bet, it will go essentially to the bottom of the deck and be bid again a second time. If no one wants it a second time around, it will be returned to the box, and no one will actually own that car. If a player happens to have won multiple cars and power, then they must choose one of those powers and return the rest to the box, as each player may only have 1 power. Once all the cars have been auctioned off, then we're ready to begin the race. The player who owns the car in this 1 checkered spot will be the first player. And players will take turn in a clockwise fashion. And the way a turn works is on your turn, you will be playing one of the cards from your hand, let's say this one, and then from the top to the bottom of the list, you will each move the cards accordingly. So in this card, I have the black 6, so I would move the card 6 spaces, a green 4, and a wild 2. Now the wilds can be essentially any card that isn't already on the card. So it can't be black, green, or red, but I can use that wild to move orange, blue, or yellow in this case. When moving, a card has to move forward in some fashion. So they cannot move side to side, but they can move diagonally. Now, in the case of a turn, there are cases where these two spaces are side by side, but the front of this space is further than this one. So moving here would count as moving forward. And in some cases, if you are moving, and say if this red card were to move 2 spaces, but in this turn it is blocked, it will only be able to get to move 1. It is blocked and it can't get through. Once played, it will go to a discard pile, and then the next player will go. And the race will continue in this way until it's over. However, there are these yellow lines on the racetrack. What these yellow lines indicate is when a car passes that yellow line after playing a card, once that card has been fully resolved, a betting will take place. In which case, as you can see on the score pad that everyone has, there are 3 columns for bet 1, 2, and 3. When someone crosses that first yellow line, they will put an X or a check to indicate who they think will win. And then when they cross the second yellow line, they'll bet again in the second column, and the third yellow line will be the third bet. And once a player has finished the race with one of their cars, they will discard their hand and no longer participate in the race. But once at least all players have one of their cars finishing the race, and as they do, placed in these placement for when they finish the race, then there will be final scoring, in which case you will circle your car's placement in the race. You will circle your bets based on what you did. So if I said I would think orange was going to win, and on the first bet he did, I would circle this 9. If he came in second, I would circle the 6, or third, I would circle the 3. I would do this for all 3 of my bets. If my marked card did not score at all, I wouldn't get anything. And at the bottom here, I would take my racing total plus my bets minus my auction bets that I did at the beginning of the game, giving my total winnings. Whoever has the highest total winnings will win the game. And that's how you play Downforce. Now there are some variants that I will talk about. One of those variants is a beginner setup good for kids and family. Basically, you remove the betting at the beginning and in the game, in which you will shuffle up and deal the 8s to all the players evenly. Any remaining cards will go in the back in the box, and no one will own that car. And the way the game will work is you'll shuffle all the speed cards together, leaving the 8s in front of the owners, and each player will have a hand of 3. When they play a card, they will redraw at the end of their turn from a communal deck. And in this version, you essentially will always have the 8 available to play, and it's whoever crosses the finish line first. They will win the game, and that's it for the basic version. In a 2-player version, you will shuffle the deck, deal out to 2 players, but instead of having a hand, you actually have a hand of 7 and a personal deck, in which case you will play and draw from your personal deck and essentially play as normal. There's also long distance races, in which case all players will play until they run out of speed cards, and then whoever is in the lead will win the race. There's also a World Tour game where you play 2 games back to back and then combine the scores for both games. Anyway, that's how you play Downforce. Thanks for watching, like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye for now.